Bom dia para todo mundo. A gente está hoje aqui no mais um encontro, né, do laboratório Imaginar Muito Mesmo, nossos encontros semanais abertos ao público, no Instituto de Humanidades, Artes e Ciências, professor Milton Santos, na Universidade Federal da Bahia. Hoje com a gente vai ter o médico, psiquiatra e estrategista de políticas públicas, o Dr. Rabih El Chammay. Bom dia, Rabih. How are you doing?
Bom dia, Sheila. I'm doing great, thank you. And thank you for the invitation.
So thank you for being here. A gente vai fazer uma mistura de português e inglês. Eu gostaria, inclusive, de dizer que esse aqui é um laboratório, né? Então, não é uma fala, não é um congresso, não é uma entrevista, é um laboratório. Então, eu gostaria de começar dizendo que a gente teve muito problema para a tradução. So, I'd like to start saying that we had problems with translation because I'm a little bit activist, you know? So, I wanted to have this thing in Arabic and Portuguese. So, then in English and in Portuguese. And a gente não conseguiu fazer nem em árabe em português e nem em inglês em português por causa de precariedade. Precariedade da universidade pública, precariedade dos institutos consulados e afins ligados à questão libanesa. Então, assim, de certa maneira eu fico triste, mas ao mesmo tempo eu fico pensando que a gente trabalha nesse tipo de ambiente. So that's the environment that we work anyhow. The environment that we can count on certain parameters, but we cannot count on like ideal parameters. It's not ideal whatsoever. So, having said that, eu gostaria de agradecer o Instituto de Cultura Árabe de São Paulo, em nome da Natália Narraz, responsável da cultura. Gostaria de agradecer o professor Paulo Amarante e a Leandra Brasil, do LAPS, Laboratório de Apoio Psicossocial da Fiocruz, no Rio de Janeiro, e agradecer as pessoas do NEXT e também meus produtores e também o Osório, que está aqui ajudando a gente hoje. Rabih é um amigo muito querido meu, muito próximo. A gente se conhece há 12 anos e a gente trabalha e troca coisas sobre cultura e saúde mental nesse processo. Rabih, ele trabalhou com refugiados e com a questão de dependência de álcool e drogas. E a partir de 2014, ele lançou, junto com a equipe dele, uma estratégia de um plano nacional de saúde mental no Ministério da Saúde Pública do Líbano. Então, é isso. Welcome, Rabih. Thank you very, very much for being here. For me and for us, it's like an honor to have you. And a pleasure. So, welcome to our laboratory, and you can talk if you want.
Obrigado, Sheila. Bom dia. É prazer estar aqui na Universidade Federal de Bahia. É a minha primeira vez no Brasil. E eu queria tanto poder conversar com vocês em português, que para mim é uma das línguas mais lindas. Infelizmente, eu ainda não tive tempo para aprendê-lo. Muito obrigado pelo convite e por estar aqui hoje. So now I will move to English, unfortunately. I will share my screen and then will present a few slides, and then we'll have a discussion and maybe show some videos as well. Sheila, would you like to show your videos now or afterwards?
Good idea. I forgot because I was tense. Ok, eu vou colocar uns vídeos, tá, gente, do Programa Nacional de Saúde Mental do Líbano. Dessa maneira, a gente já começa um pouco em português, eu meio que traduzindo, para a gente fazer essa ponte aí do jeito que a gente consegue. Então, vamos lá. Só... Could we see it? No? Gabi, you have to... Você tem que autorizar, Gabi. Okay, let's try again.
صعب، كتير صعب يلي عم نمرق فيه. أزمة بنزين، خبز، مصاري، دولار وانهيار لبناني، كهرباء، انفجار، جروح مفتحة وخوف كل الوقت. أهلنا وأصحابنا عم بيهاجروا ونحن يا مقهورين على الفراق، يا جاي دورنا أو عم نتمنى يجي دورنا. أوقات فكر قدي صار قليل تشوف ناس حولك بعدها قادرة تستحمل وتبتسم. أنا لا جاي أحبطكم ولا إلكم إنه يابا اللبناني كتير قوي ومعروف بالصمود، بس بهيك أيام نحن بحاجة لدينة تسمعنا، دينا نحكي لها شو صاير معنا ونعبر عن مشاعرنا، نحس إننا مش لحالنا.
ألو خط الحياة، كيف يساعدكم؟
إذا شي مرة بحاجة تحكوا حدا عن شو حاسين، نحن موجودين 21 ساعة باليوم. اتصلوا بخط الحياة على 1564 لأنه الحكي بيطول العمر.
Yes, so here we go. You want to see another one or you want to talk? The microphone.
Yeah, maybe I could present a bit more the bigger picture of the program, and then we can show bits and pieces of the work together.
Perfect.
Let me know if you can see my screen. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, now we can see it.
What do you see now?
We see why is mental health important in time of crisis.
Okay. So I will start my presentation with maybe this number, because I think this number is the most important number when it comes to mental health. Why? Because 1 in 4 people will develop a mental health condition in their lives. 1 person is lost to suicide every 40 seconds worldwide. And 1% of the health budget is the amount of money invested in mental health in low and middle income countries, whereas the burden of mental illness can be as high as 15 to 20%. So this is an easy number to remember, and a number that speaks.
No. Sorry.
No worries. Should I continue, Shayla?
Yes, sorry, I was talking to the translators. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
And so this number speaks ton about the discrepancy between the needs for mental health services and the resources available. These are the 10 priority mental health, 10 priority health conditions that are responsible for the years lived with disability. And in red, you can see that 4 out of the 10 health conditions are mental health related condition, and that the first condition is depression or depressive disorders that is responsible alone for around 11% of years lived with disability. These are the predictions of WHO for 2030. And as you can see, regardless of where the country is, whether it's a low-income country, middle-income country, or high-income country, depression is among the top 3 conditions. And depression is only one of the mental health conditions that you can see. So that's just a simple background about global mental health. Now to zoom in on Lebanon. Lebanon is a small country, about 10,000 square kilometers on the eastern Mediterranean Sea. It shares the biggest border with Syria. It has a population of 4 million, maybe a bit more now, Lebanese, around 200,000 Palestinian refugees, a long history of civil war and political unrest. And since 10 years, we've been struggling with the repercussions of the crisis in Syria, which is the neighboring country, as you can see here, where we have 1 to 1.5 million Syrian displaced in Lebanon, which makes Lebanon one of the first country who has number of refugees per capita in the world, which means 1 person in 4 in Lebanon is Syrian displaced. To add on this, in 2019, we started a downhill with the economic and political crisis. Currently, the country is in a political deadlock and one of the worst economic crises, not only for Lebanon, but worldwide. In August last year, we had one of the biggest non-nuclear explosions in the port of Beirut that decimated half of the city. Beirut is the capital, killed more than 300 persons, injured more than 6,000 persons, and destroyed around 300,000 apartments. And since then, also, we've been struggling, as all the countries, with the COVID. So within this context of multiple crises, from the political crisis to the economic crisis to the Beirut port explosion to the health crisis, one might say, why is mental health important? Why are we talking about mental health? Is it really the priority right now? Shouldn't we be focusing more on economy and politics? And usually my argument to this is that if you have a sidewalk in front of your house and people are falling and breaking their legs, would you wonder whether you need to fix the sidewalk or take people to the hospital? I don't think you would. I think you would know, obviously, that people who have broken their legs need to go to the hospital and that the sidewalk needs to be repaired. And this is what we say. We say, like, definitely mental health is not only the health sector responsibility. When we speak about mental health, it's not about only scaling up services for mental health. That's part of it, to have services that are aligned with human rights and evidence-based, that are in the community, that respects the dignity of persons, but also to work on social determinants such as poverty, education, social justice, equality, gender equality, and all the other factors that make a person mentally unwell or psychologically unwell. I don't know which is more appropriate in Portuguese. When we started the program in 2014, the mental health system in Lebanon was mainly in big institutions. We had 5 psychiatric hospitals, 3 big ones. We had a few private psychiatric wards in general hospitals and private hospitals, university hospitals, so not accessible to most of the population. The outpatient care was mainly in the city, in the private sector, and also not accessible for everyone. 2014, the ministry launched the National Mental Health Program with the support of WHO, UNICEF, and International Medical Corps. And we launched in 2015 a strategy to reform the mental health system in Lebanon in line with WHO Action Plan for Mental Health, with the vision that all people living in Lebanon will have the opportunity to enjoy the best possible mental health and well-being. And if you read closely, the vision does not say Lebanese people, it says all people living in Lebanon, because we deeply believe that mental health should be approached from a right-based perspective as well, and that everyone should have access to mental health regardless of their nationality or legal status. In 2018, we did an external midterm evaluation of the strategy by 2 experts recruited by WHO. And this year we're wrapping up, because 2020 was extremely difficult for Lebanon. We were not able to do the wrapping up. We continued more on scaling up services. So we're going to wrap up the strategy and move forward to develop a strategy for the next phase. Those are the domains of strategy. I'm going to go a bit through each one of them and tell you what we've been doing in each one. In the first domain, around leadership and governance, we were able to pass 2 laws. The first law is to regulate the profession of psychologists. The second law is to create an order for psychologists to regulate the profession. We revised the mental health law towards human rights, aligning it with the Convention for the Rights of Persons with Disability. And we are in the process of revising the substance use law towards decriminalization of use and pushing people more into the health system instead of into the penal system. In the second domain, reorientation of services, we're working on integrating mental health into primary care. We've developed with WHO and tested through a randomized controlled trial and evidence-based interventions through an application, so a digital application for guided self-help that was tested for Lebanese and refugee on 1,200 persons and found effective for depression, and now we're scaling it up. We're also developing community-based mental health centers, and we opened psychiatric ward in general hospital across the country. In addition, we are developing all the normative frameworks from accreditation criteria to lists of medication and other to criteria of professionals. In the third domain, around prevention and promotion, we are the first country in the region to have a national hotline for emotional support and suicide prevention. So you saw the video that you saw, it was for that hotline that is run in collaboration with Embrace, which is a local NGO. And in 1 month from now, it will be 24/7. Now it's 21 over 24 hours. The number of calls, it's increasing. And right now we are also adding to it a project pilot, which is a crisis unit, mobile team from a psychiatrist and a nurse that can be mobilized with the Red Cross in case of psychiatric emergency. We also worked very closely with the Ministry of Education on life skills in schools, and we're supposed to pilot it, but then with COVID, all school stops. In the fourth domain, we have a number of ongoing research on the governance, financing, on other intervention, and right now we're preparing on a big research on the effectiveness of interpersonal therapy, which is an evidence-based therapy in a group for mothers, and we're going to measure the impact on child development. We're doing this with Columbia University in New York and with UCL in the UK. In the fifth domain, it's very specific to Lebanon. We've identified during the process of development of the strategy around 13 groups that were found to be vulnerable groups. And by vulnerable groups, we mean people whose situation put them at a higher risk of developing a mental disorder. It does not mean that they have mental disorders per se. And those groups are foreign domestic workers in Lebanon, persons in prisons, survivors of torture, survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, families of disappeared people during the war, and another group is persons from the LGBT community or the sexual minority. And for each group, we have specific objective that we're working on. I'm going to show you here a video about the presentation of the results of the midterm evaluation to our stakeholder. Can you still see my screen? You see the video?
Yes, we do, yes.
Okay.
The ministry launched the National Mental Health Program in 2014 in partnership with WHO, UNICEF, and IMC. Since then, the partnerships of the program have grown to include more than 40 partners working together on building the different blocks of the system in line with the mental health strategy launched in 2015. This work aims to reform the mental health system towards community-based services that are in line with evidence-based and human rights, and to strengthen the promotion of mental health and the prevention of mental disorders.
We are gathered here today to reiterate the mental health in Lebanon as a priority. This participatory and transparent approach is in line with WHO framework for health policies and strategies.
We tried to understand the main achievements that were made and to identify the strengths, the weaknesses, the barriers, the facilitating factors in this process.
The importance of including persons with lived experience. In the program, we call them our experts by experience, and some of them are here with us today.
The ongoing reform of mental health system in Lebanon can maybe in the future transform Lebanon is an example for the region.
هاي أول مرة بلبنان عم بيكون في هالمساحة اللي هي شاملة لكل الهيئات المعنية سواء أهلية أو دولية أو حتى أممية كوكالات متحدة عم تجري حول هذا السؤال الخاص بموضوع الصحة النفسية.
I hope all the sectors are going to get more involved. It's so important for the country. It's an unrecognized need in the community, and hopefully we'll see more fruits from the initiative.
We would like to reiterate WHO support to the national strategy's vision that all people living in Lebanon will have the opportunity to enjoy the best possible mental health and well-being.
The ministry will continue to cooperate with other ministries, UN agencies, professional associations, academia, the private and the NGO sectors in order to achieve national goals for mental health.
Going back to the presentation. So when COVID started, also, we were quick to develop an intersectoral mental health and psychosocial support response that was aligned with the interagency.
Dr. Ron is online now.
Committee and aligned with those 4 goals. So to promote mental health
محمد أقدر أبتدي دلوقتي؟
and mitigate so promote mental health and mitigate COVID-related stressor and specifically stigma. And I don't know how it was in Brazil, but in Lebanon, initially there was a lot of stigma and discrimination against people
and Brazil also, muito stigma, sim.
Health workers. The second goal was to provide mental health support for persons in the quarantine. The third is to support the mental health of the health worker. And the fourth is to ensure the continuity of care for people with mental health conditions. I'm not going to go through all the details. There's a lot of material on our social media. Maybe, Shayla, we can put links to that also at the end of the video for those who are interested in seeing more. So we did 2 big campaigns, one for stigma that goes, so fear of each other, we barred the off and it became fear for each other. I'm not sure if you want to translate that, Shayla, directly.
Yes, could you repeat, instead of fear from each other, fear for each other, right?
So instead of being afraid of one another, being afraid for each other.
Exactly. Ok, ao invés de ter medo do outro, ter medo para cada de nós.
And the hashtag was the real test, because we played around the fact that whether you tested positive or negative on the COVID, and we said that the real test is not to stigmatize again others. And this was another video that we did for stigma.
العالم كله خايف، عايش نفس الواقع، والخوف مبعدنا عن بعض. طبيعي نكون خايفين حتى لو الحياة عم ترجع شوي شوي لطبيعتها. خايفين على حالنا، على يلي بنحبهم، لأنه كلنا معرضين. الفيروس ما بيميز. بس ما في عيب ولا حياة إذا الفحص طلع إيجابي. مش هيدا الاختبار الأهم. الاختبار الأهم إنه ما نحول خوفنا على صحتنا لخوف من بعض. إنه نشوف الإنسان مش المرض. نتذكر إنه ما عمل شيء غلط. الاختبار الأهم نوقف حد بعض مش ضد بعض. لأن يلي فيه مرضنا مش بس الفيروس، يلي فيه كمان يمرضنا هو إذا تخلينا عن محبتنا لبعض.
So that was kind of a video that also went on TV and that went on the opening of the news on a prime time at 8 p.m. And that was, I think, very well received as well. In addition to this, I'm not going to go through that. On August 4th, so we had this big explosion in the port that really shook, and I think to a certain extent is still shaking the city. It destroyed half of the city. You can still see up until now a year after, buildings that are still completely destroyed because of it. And based on it, we also developed an action plan, intersectoral action plan. But our position as a program was very clear from day one, that right now, in the first few hours, days, people need help. They need access to basic needs. They need access to healthcare. They need information about their loved ones, and they need to access that in a safe and dignified manner. They don't have mental disorders. They have reactions, normal reactions to abnormal events. And we said that on the long term, what is really needed for healing on the long term is truth and justice. But meanwhile, also, some people might be dealing with a lot of stress, a lot of difficulties to cope for themselves or for their loved one, and those persons need access to mental health services. So as you see, we're not opposing either or, and I think this is a message that we're really keen on getting across. It's not a matter of choosing. When you talk about mental health, you need to have all the elements needed for good mental health present for people to have a good well-being. There were 3 pillars for this action plan: coordination, services, and dissemination of information. And we were able to gather around it 6 UN agencies, including IOM, who's not here yet in this draft, WHO, UNICEF, UNHCR, UNDP, and UNFPA, and around 60 actors working in the country in mental health. And one of the things, so we disseminated a lot of material. This is also one of the material for when to seek support for mental health. So the first few weeks, we were very communicating on normalizing the feelings, giving a few tips how to cope with stress, how to help children cope with stress. And then after a few weeks, people who were still struggling, we kind of started producing this type of videos.
We're not seeing anymore. Rabih?
Yes, you can see.
No, we cannot.
Okay, so maybe because the video is in the PowerPoint. Never mind. We'll
because we're not seeing the PowerPoint anymore neither.
You're not seeing the PowerPoint anymore.
I was translating, so I don't know when it stopped because I was concentrated.
Let me see. Share PowerPoint, share screen. But did you see the video on COVID?
Let me ask.
Yes?
I don't know. Pessoal, a gente viu o vídeo da COVID? Viu, né? Alguém me responde aqui no chat? One second, because I'm asking them.
Hey, if they didn't see it, I can put it again.
Me respondam. A gente viu, Bruna, Gabi, Osório, a gente viu o vídeo da COVID? Sim, yes. Yes, we did.
You did, okay.
Yeah.
And this one, did you see it?
E esse aqui, Gabi, a gente viu? We're not seeing that now.
I don't know why, because I'm still on the same.
Aceita o vídeo dele, Gabi. Aceita a tela dele. So.
Share. And now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So I was saying that for the victims of the explosion, we were very clear about the importance of truth and justice, and that we've developed also this video for people who needed mental health support. Okay. So in terms of maybe our lessons learned here in Lebanon, I think what helped us really being able to respond and to make mental health a priority in the country is the fact that we have a central governing body for mental health, which is the National Mental Health Program, and that as a program we have really good connections and coordinations with all the actors using a collaborative governance model, and that we're using having the strategy helped gather everyone around a roadmap, and also using crisis as an opportunity to strengthen the systems instead of building parallel systems. So I'll stop here, and those are our handles for social media, where you can find more information, and those are also our email and webpage for those of you who need more information. I'll stop here and leave room for questions if there are. Thank you.
Muito obrigada, Rabih. Bom, gente, eu sei que a gente está tentando aqui fazer algumas traduções, se virando dos 30 aqui, né? Enquanto o Rabih não fala português ainda, disse que prometeu que vai falar. Enquanto isso, a gente está traduzindo do jeito que dá. Eu vou fazer um apanhado geral do que ele falou, os highlights, as coisas mais importantes, e a gente vai abrir para perguntas também. So, thank you, Rabih. Now, I was telling people that, we were trying to do our best with this translation made by myself, and while Gabriel was pushing the subtitles. And now I'm telling people that you're open to questions. And I would like to tell you that here in the room we have few very dear people, like Dr. Paula Amarante, Dr. Leandra Brasil, and some other fellows. Thank you all for being here. Muito obrigada por estar aqui com a gente hoje. Espero que essa questão do laboratório seja importante. Eu gostaria de frisar que o nosso laboratório é sobre estudos do imaginário, né? E sobre a questão transcultural também. Que o meu papel no Instituto de Humanidades, Artes e Ciências, professor Milton Santos, da Universidade Federal da Bahia, é a questão estética, artística e cultural. Mas, para mim, a questão da política, justiça social, a questão do direito à verdade, ela é completamente vinculada, né, à questão da cultura, à questão da arte, né? Muitos artistas trabalham sobre a questão da saúde mental, né, Arthur Bispo do Rosário e tantos outros, né? Só agora me vem em mente. E essa questão da saúde mental como interesse artístico e cultural sempre é uma coisa lateral, ou que está dentro do trabalho do artista, ou de quem promove cultura, ou mesmo na questão da luta antimanicomial, como a gente faz uma questão de transição clínica para a transição de promoção de saúde, né, promoção de saúde mental como uma dimensão e não como uma patologia. Tudo isso eu considero que seja muito, né, vinculado à questão da cultura. Então, por isso, tive esse convite com o Rabih. So, Rabih, people are saying here, okay, so Dr. Leandra Brasil said, good morning, congratulations for this meeting and for the generosity of opening to all of us this discussion, which is very, very fundamental for the moment that we are living. Then Professor Paula Amarante says, good morning, Dr. Rabih and Sheila, and to all. So it's a great expectation to listen to this speech and encounter. And Marcos de Napoli said, knowledge free us. So, and so far we have no questions so far, but I would like to ask you a question. So I'll ask in English and I'll ask and then I translate anyhow. So let me see my questions that I wrote them down. Yeah, well, I was supposed to ask you what is like mental health and crisis, but you said that already. So eu ia perguntar para ele o que é para ele, né, saúde mental e como que ele define uma crise, uma situação de crise, mas isso ele já falou bastante durante a apresentação dele, né? Então eu vou perguntar uma nova coisa, que é como você acha que uma pessoa que não trabalha com saúde mental pode cuidar de si mesmo e ter uma responsabilidade, um cuidado em relação à sua coletividade. So now I'll say in English. So how do you think that people that don't work with mental health can take care of herself and be responsible and take care also for the others, for his or her own community, or even like to the world, let's say? Is that clear, my question? So you have no microphone. You have no microphone.
Yes, sorry for that. Thank you for the question, Shayla. I think it's very clear and it's very important because we always think when we speak about mental health, we think mental health is only a matter of, you know, those mysterious mental health professionals, psychiatrists and psychologists and psychoanalysts, and like it's something very complex that we don't understand. And as a matter of fact, I mean, for me, I mean, even being a psychiatrist, and I've been personally through psychoanalysis, and I think mental health is not that complicated, and it's extremely complicated. It's not complicated because each one of us know what they want to be in a good enough mental health. When I say good enough mental health, I'm not saying that all of us will and should be happy all the time. This is not realistic. This is not human. But to be in a state where we can enjoy positive things, where we can cope with stress without destroying us, where we can have meaningful relationships, where we can contribute to our societies. There are some basics that we need, and that start with, you know, having a safe place to live, having food on the table, having access to education, being free from violence, from oppression, being able to connect with others in the community, to express oneself, one's dreams, to have this aspiration for the future. And how can we take care of ourselves is by taking care of our basics. So I would say it really starts by taking care of our body, eating well, sleeping well, not overdoing it with alcohol, preserving our lungs from tobacco, so no excess when it comes to the body, exercising, eating as much as possibly healthy, and then we move into the social realm, which is having meaningful and good relationship, trusted relationship, invest in those relationships, have time for reflection, even 5 minutes every day, just to ground oneself is really important. To articulate what are our difficulties, to understand what are we feeling is really important. To ask for help. I think the most difficult thing is that people most of the time don't realize that their pain and their suffering can be helped. They might tag it as normal, taking into account the situation. Whereas we know that even if the stressors are a lot, not all people will develop mental disorders. Some will. And the limit is not always extremely clear, especially for those who are not mental health professionals who can put diagnoses. So I would encourage people to seek help, to ask, to speak with trusted people, and to see where they can get help when needed. I think especially now in the digital era, everyone can access some kind of support. Sometimes, information can be very empowering. Knowing what I have, how to name it, and what can I do to help myself can be of a great value as well. So mental health, yes, some of us need very specialized services, but most of us can do without those specialized services if we work on our basis and on our health in general. And of course, I always say that there's no health without mental health, and there's no health without social justice. So health is not only medical, it's not in the body. Health is social. So which takes us to the discussion around discrimination, around all the rights movement, and the marginalized group that are even more sometimes at risk of developing mental disorders, not because biologically they have problems, but because their social situations put even more and more stress on them.
Sorry, I was translating you. Wow. Yeah, thank you. Can I, let's see if we have questions. We don't. So can I keep on asking you?
Please.
So I'm gonna first ask in Português. O Rabih estava falando, né, que a questão da saúde mental, na maioria dos casos, não é uma questão clínica, patológica, mas é uma questão de contexto, né, contexto de injustiça, de discriminação, falta de acesso a questões básicas, né, a questão da violência, da comida, da casa, né, consideradas básicas do ponto de vista dos direitos humanos, né. E enquanto não tiver essa justiça social, enquanto a gente não promover essa questão de igualdade de gênero, igualdade em geral, as pessoas vão ter um estresse que vão afetar a saúde mental delas, né? Isso mais ou menos resumindo o que ele falou. Então, eu pergunto, nunca na história existiu uma justiça de fato, né? Então, você acreditaria em pequenos ambientes de justiça? So, I'm gonna translate. Well, first I said, like, I synthesized what you said. And then you point a lot about social justice, and the access and the right to have access to the truth of things, okay, to transparency. And well, I don't mean to be bitter, but historically speaking, we can access less justice than more justice, and we can access less truth, than the truth. And so my question is, how do you deal with this small contexts of justice? I mean, it's like a few contexts of justice, no? Because we know that at large, like 99% is going to be like hell. So how do you deal with that?
Thank you for this question, Shayla. And I think the way I look at it is, you need to really have clarity about your position in the system and what role are you playing. You cannot do everything at the same time. So you can choose to be a human rights activist and push that and push forward. You can choose to be a leader, a political leader who wants to change the political system. And I think it's really important that you have clarity about what are the prerogatives and the capacities of the role you are in. So for me personally, I see myself, and I still see myself as mainly a mental health professional. But when I say mental health professionals, I don't mean that being a psychiatrist, I see myself only prescribing medicine and giving medication. What I'm saying is that I chose that for me, in all this complex system where we need to work on the social determinants and we need to also increase and improve services, this is where my expertise is, and this is where I'm working. But I'm doing this while acknowledging the importance of that as well. Even if I can't ensure justice, but if I, as a mental health professionals, and us as a National Mental Health Program, we say that justice is important for mental health, that in itself is healing, even if I can't do it personally. So I guess, in a way, advocating for and giving the right place for the different social determinants is really important, even if you're not acting on them.
Yes, I totally agree. I totally see that, because I don't know how to say that in English. Maybe support, but in Portuguese we have a very beautiful word that many psychologists or people who work with mental health say. So the word is acolhimento. Say an accueil, but it's not just accueil. Acolhimento is really like. So eu realmente acredito nisso que você está falando, que a gente não pode interferir diretamente na questão da justiça, porque a gente não é um mágico, mas só o fato de falar isso é uma coisa que transpassa, né, essa situação, e que quem está ouvindo se vê visto, né? So I was saying that from my point of view, what I understand that you're saying is that even if we cannot, of course, touch every justice problem and change the world, and the fact that you put your action in its right place and in its role, the fact that you're saying that for mental health, justice is important. So those who have access to listen to that, to read that justice is important for mental health, are already being seen, already being touched by that, and already having their mental health being approached, as to say. And yeah, because it's like for us in the art or in the culture, no, it's not everybody who's going to have access to what we do, but it's like also it's like you're planting seeds, and then people take the fruit. One take the leaf, the other one destroy the tree, and there's a movement that we create. Eu estava dizendo que nas artes a gente não é todo mundo que vai ter acesso, nem na questão cultural, mas que isso vai fomentando outras reverberações, né? Like reverberation, right? Here in Salvador, look, G said, I love the presentation. Dr. Rabih brought questions, very, very pertinent questions that I never had thought before. Interesting. And he has a question. He would like to, or she, I don't know, because she is like a unisex name, so I don't know if it's a man or a woman. Anyway, the question is, in your opinion, when we can start teaching or talking about mental health to kids?
Well, I would say, I mean, it should be part of the discussions that we have with kids as early as on. I mean, we teach them about their body, about how to bathe, about how to eat, how to keep themselves clean, but we don't teach them, for example, to understand, I mean, what is this feeling I have here? So we can give them name. Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you afraid? So mental health doesn't have to be very complex. It can start if I see my little kid crying, or I said no, and then he started crying, right? Say, okay, so I see you're crying, you're upset because I said no, this is making you feel uncomfortable, maybe. Do you want to talk about it? So start to give them the words, because mental health is not in a cloud. Mental health is experienced in the body. And I think this is really important. There's no disconnection between the mind and the body. We live in our body and we live in our language. So the more we can strengthen the links between what's experienced in the body, the thoughts, and the language, the more the children will be first aware about their bodily experiences, their thoughts, able to articulate them to us, and, which is most important, learning that it's part of human life and part of normality to sometimes be happy, sometimes not be happy, to experience a different range of emotions, to have sometimes scary thoughts, scary dreams, etc. So if we talk about mental health, like, I mean, if the kid come from the school and we ask them, how was your day? So maybe we can ask them at night before they sleep. So how was your day? How was your day? How were you feeling today? Is there anything bothering you? Is there anything like particularly worrying you or you're thinking about? I mean, this is mental health. It doesn't have to be something complex, and it can be part of everything else that we do with the kid.
Yes, I translated everything. I don't know if it's been showing here. I think it is. I don't know. Eu tenho um filho, né? Eu tenho um filho de 3 anos. Se chama Marcelo. Para mim é bem interessante apontar o que ele vai sentindo e quando eu aponto o que ele vai sentindo, existe um movimento entre nós. E quando ele está bravo, ele me morde. Assim, as crianças também pedem. I was thinking that with my son, Marcelo, I know because, you know, people tell me to do that, so I agree. Like, I'm always showing, you know, like, are you sad or are you angry, blah, blah, blah. But also he teaches me as well when he wants to do something. It's not like this direction, but it's like a dialogue with anyone else. No, he bites me and he jumps on the floor. So, I mean, I think that what we cannot do, although I'm not a mental health specialist, is to ignore. So I understand that mental health is about not ignoring people's feelings. Do you agree?
It's about being responsive. It's
responsive.
Not only ignoring, responsive.
Responsive.
Yes, and I think being responsive is the most important thing a parent can do. Being responsive, it's not always allowing everything with the kid. is acknowledging what's happening and explaining why you're doing what you're doing.
Yes. Oh, yes. Let's see if there are other questions. Yes, so we have here people saying, so Bruno Soares said, for me, wait a second, I'm going to read it first. Interesting. Bruno says, for me, having and giving mental health here, it has to do with acolhimento, as I said, like, how do you say acolhimento? Like, accueil, supportive, responsive, I don't know. For those who cannot have access, no access to mental health, or that has a little bit of mental health. So this little environment of justice has to come from ourselves. That's what she's thinking. Well, that's a little bit lonely. No?
Yes. If I understood well.
Well, she says that that she thinks that the justice environment has to come from each one of us, but then it's like very lonely.
No.
And Paula Marantes says, my question, I wanna read first. Minha questão diz respeito à preocupação de cuidar sem patologizar, uma vez que a existência de situações de sofrimento, seja mental, social ou existencial, não são sinônimos de enfermidade. Yeah, well,
I think I understood.
Go. Okay.
I think I understood. So yeah, I mean, I fully agree. I think it's really important not to medicalize or psychologize human suffering in general. And I think, as I said before, that it's really important to know that being in a good mental health is not being happy. And here I have a lot of situations through which I've been personally also as a clinician that are put me in a quite a paradox. For example, a few years back when I was still working as a clinician with refugees, and the refugee comes to me saying that, doctor, can you please give me a report and saying I'm not doing well at all, because this will help me, will help my application to leave to Europe. Or another one who comes and say, kind of presenting with depression, knowing that if I prescribe medication, they will have a report to go and then present to the authorities so they can expedite their referral. The reason I'm saying this is because also the systems around us sometimes are perverting the role and the function of mental health. And most of the time, there's an inadequacy between what we as health professionals can give, what the demand from the person is, and what is the requirement from this authority is. And I think it's very important for us as mental health professionals to be very aware all the time, what is society asking out of us, and how do we position ourselves in that sense? For example, at some point back, maybe a bit in the Middle Age or 16th, 17th century up into the 18th, I think it was like, lock the mad in, take the mad out of the society, put them in a big asylum. This was the mandate of psychiatry. Then, we need to give them the moral treatment and then to take them out of the asylum. And now, recently, I think the request on mental health and on psychiatry and psychology which I think some of us are falling for, is that make us happy. There's this demand from society about quick fixes to make everyone happy. And I think this is not our job. This is not our job to make everyone happy, as it's not our job to present a medical solution for a social problem. This refugee, I mean, what will make them feel better is their social situation and their legal status. It's not this pill that I'm going to give them. But what would you do if you know that this report that you will give them can help them get to that social situation? Would you give it to them or no?
This is very great. I mean, this is something that I didn't know about your work, especially this, you know, that it becomes a little bit of a branding, no? Recently, vou falar em inglês, depois eu falo em português, tá, gente? Recently, because I'm organizing a book for this laboratory, and so I invited someone to write about her presentation, and she gave me a few names anyway, and I was looking to these few names, and then blah blah blah, I found this psychiatrist who has this like website, okay, and this website with his picture, you know, like Dr. so-and-so, and like blah blah, and a little bit of, you know, some waterfalls, and I was like, what the hell? Like I don't know, it's like it became like a market, you know, like fashion, you know. So how do you, because you work with a lot of people, right? You work with a lot of partnerships. How do you deal with partners who are extremely different? So vou perguntar em português agora. Eu estava falando que eu vi esse psiquiatra num site, que o psiquiatra tinha essa fotografia, tinha cachoeiras, prometia tudo, prometia a melhor felicidade do mundo, que você seria a pessoa mais linda, mais feliz, mais rica, mais sexy se fosse com ele lá. Tipo, você teria tudo, você não precisaria de mais nada porque ele estava lá como o seu psiquiatra, né? E aí estou perguntando para o Rabih como ele lida com pessoas parceiras dele que são muito, muito diferentes. Is there people who are very, like, extremely different from your values that you have to work with? Microphone, please. Thank you.
I think when, especially, I mean, I'm not going to speak as a person. I'm going to speak from my position in the program, because I think it's how I engage with people who have maybe different values, different ways of work, or looking at life. And my personal life might be a bit different from how I work as a program. As a program, we have a set of values. So as long as the values are aligned, it doesn't matter how different you are or not. But because we're pushing human rights, we're pushing empowerment of the person, we're pushing the person being a human first, then having a mental disorder, and not the opposite. So, and we want to push things that are aligned with science a bit, instead of doing, not because other things that don't have evidence in science that mean it doesn't work. For example, as I said, I mean, I did, and I'm still am from time to time, I see my psychoanalyst, and I think it helps me a lot. But as a public policy, it does not articulate well into how you can develop services on a country level. psychoanalysis. So I wouldn't, for example, move forward in putting psychoanalysts in primary healthcare centers as a program. But I would very much enjoy discussing with them out of this frame and taking some distance from where I am and reflecting on things and maybe looking at my own processes and use this energy maybe to feed into that work. So I think everyone can contribute as long as the frames in which we interact are well articulated and well defined, and as long as the values are clear, that we're headed in the same direction.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, it's not obviously. So, sorry, I was thinking like, how could you, for instance, be a consultant in our government here in Brazil, but nobody would even ask you to do so because you don't have the same values. I mean, so you won't you see, because I was thinking how we can do this work in Brazil. That's why I was asking you, and how would you deal with the mental health if you were a consultant here in Brazil? But I mean, authoritarian governments would not ask you to be a consultant, so you would not have to deal with that because you would not be asked for, right?
I think, I mean, in Brazil, you were, I mean, I think, I don't remember now the name, but you had a very good mental health director who did a lot for the country. And when I studied about public mental health, Brazil was one of the countries. And as you said, you have Dr. Paulo, who's also very known for his work and other, I mean, you don't need me or people outside of Brazil, you have everything you need. But I guess sometimes, and for the better or for the worse, you need political will. It's not knowing what to do. It's having someone in a authority position wanting to change things, or at the same time having a very big movement of persons, like it was the case for persons with HIV/AIDS. It was their movement that changed the global policies. So I think also there's a lot of place and more of place for persons with lived experience to push forward, because at the end of the day, politicians are about voters.
Yeah.
And if 1 in 4 will develop a mental disorder, so if it's not me, it's one of my family. So we're all involved.
Yeah, well, I was just trying to provoke you a little bit to have material for our laboratory. Eu estava só tentando provocar o Rabih para ter material para o laboratório. Of course, we actually, in South America in general, we are like very unstable. Like we have 4 years of amazing things like crème de la crème, and then 4 years of like bad situation. So anyway, that's it. A gente aqui na América Latina sempre instável, né? Coisas maravilhosas e coisas horríveis a cada 4 anos. So let's see if there are other things. Otherwise, I think we're okay. Oh, there are. Paulo Amarante says, no, he said, yeah, the problem is, if Gabriel can put the Paulo Amarante here, please. Like, o problema é o que é a enfermidade mental. Uma boa discussão para termos depois. Não queria atrapalhar a apresentação, mas levantar para refletir. So he's saying that still, what it is really like pathology, mental pathology. Like it's even like he's like doing the question of the question, no? Like, yeah. Because he said like many people doesn't have like a pathology, but he's saying like, well, where does it start, the pathology? So this is another great question for us to discuss somewhere else in another moment, maybe in Rio with a beer. So
no, I mean, I'm happy to quickly share my thoughts on it. I think one of the weakest problems of mental health is that the way we our nosography and the basis on which we develop categories, and the fact that it's mainly based on semiology, which means symptoms, makes all those categories very weak. They don't have the same solid background as let's say when we're speaking about cancer, where things are, you have the biology, the markers, the definitions, and it's clear. So in mental health, I think we're still really far from that, and I think because mental health has to do with human nature, and we cannot categorize and simplify things in a theoretical manner like the DSM would want to. But at the same time, we cannot not have some reference. For me, I don't use necessarily pathology in the sense of someone is sick in mental health, although in some situation it is an extreme health situation and it can actually push them to end their lives. I see it in the term of a continuum, so from well-being to stress, distress, and then mental disorder. And having a mental disorder does not mean that you cannot be in a good mental health. So someone can have a bipolar disorder, but be subjectively and in a very good mental health because they have access to their treatment, they are well surrounded, they're fulfilled in their lives, and everything is okay. So it's not either or, either you're mentally healthy or you have a pathology. The way I conceptualize it more is that, do you have a mental health condition that through even phenomenology and description that is recurrent and more on the chronic side? If so, how can you take care of it so you can stay in good health? And the same analogy is someone can have diabetes and be in very good health. For me, it's the same approach. So it's not like either you're healthy or you're pathological. And when we define the pathology as pathology, if you want to use this term, or as a disorder, for me, it's the two main elements are the levels of suffering of the person and the level of dysfunction that the person has in their lives. And then, of course, there's always this gray area about what the person thinks and what the family of the person thinks and what society thinks. But my reference point is always the person.
I was translating. Yeah, well, in this context that you're describing, I think that historically and also culturally, we had many controversial or complementary. I mean, it's very complex, because I was thinking, how now here I'm trying to talk about colonialism, and I'm a little bit confused because I was translating and thinking at the same time. So, and I'm not a translator officially. So I'm trying to talk about colonialism now. Okay. Estou tentando falar de colonialismo, gente. Eu estou um pouco confusa porque eu estava traduzindo e pensando ao mesmo tempo, né? E estava falando também da questão histórica, da questão da saúde mental e das questões também culturais ligadas a isso. Porque, so, what I was trying to talk and ask you is about cultural oppression. Okay, now cultural oppression is my question for you, because you've been working with Palestinian people as well, no? So I don't know if this is your main example of cultural oppression or not. And I want to make an analogy and a comparison a little bit about our situation here in Brazil and here in Bahia specifically, because Bahia is the first city, the first Brazilian city, okay? So the colonial aspects are still very, very alive, although it was like 500 years ago, you know, like the African Brazilians, they have much less access to things that the white Brazilians have. And now, for example, in our university here, I'm very, I have a sense of responsibility that's very, very big, because I'm not African Brazilian. And I feel that I have a great responsibility to not reproduce things that I'm not allowed, that I'm not conscious, aware, that I'm not aware of being reproducing this. So having said that, I'm a bit confused because it's very complex. But my question is, okay, the fact that all this clinicalization it comes from Europeans so far, no? Like from scientists from Europe, no? And you as a Lebanese, and having been working with Palestinians, do you see like gaps in perception of what mental health is? I don't know if I'm clear. I'm going to be more clear. Like, for instance, like Indian people and yoga, meditation and stuff, like since 300 years ago, they've been dealing with mind, okay, and with breathing and how to find different states and mind states and also well-being and dealing with stress, no? So then, like in the 19th century, it comes like the division of, you know, like art and science, and then what is clinical, what is body, what is mind, you know, all this separation, this industrial separation. And now, in 2021, some of us are trying to reconnect all this knowledge like a puzzle or like a mosaic or whatever. And we try to hold here and there, you know, and like try to find a way to not be like stigmatizing people, to not base things on medication. And in my opinion, this is like a colonial problem. It's a cultural colonial problem, because it's not about being pure, but it's about hegemonic powers, you know, it's about a cosmovision, you know, a cosmology, how we see things. So that's why I'm asking you. It's very complex, but I guess I could, let me just translate quickly, please. Gente, o meu assunto aqui em inglês foi a questão da cosmologia, tá? Porque como a gente está em Salvador, na questão colonial, na questão da opressão, do pensamento e dos mitos, dos rituais afro-brasileiros, negros e pretos e pretas e pretas, né? Então, a minha pergunta para o Rabia é, a gente entendendo que a questão da psiquiatria e da medicalização e da patologia, dessa visão sobre saúde mental, é uma coisa, de certa maneira, de uma ciência eurocêntrica. Ele, como libanês, que também trabalhou e trabalha com a questão dos refugiados palestinos, como que ele vê essa colonização da percepção da saúde mental? É complexo. Let's see. So sorry, because it was like, woo! But anyway. So what do you think about that?
I think I mean, that was and still a big debate around what is global in mental health and universal, and how much mental health is just deeply cultural. And this is the tension between, in general, the global mental health movement and ethno-psychiatry or ethno-mental health. I think here I think mental health, and here I'm going to use maybe a term that anthropologists use, is global, right? There are some human experience is the same across. It is the same across. Now, how it is expressed, how it is dealt with in different societies, it changes. So it really depends. Are we talking about the manifestation of the suffering or the manifestation of being outside what is socially accepted? Or are we talking about the inner experience of the person? Or are we talking about how does the person or the society deals or tries to cater for this person? And I think if we take all of that, it's never the same frame across countries, even in countries that are supposedly within the same culture. Like, let's say, I mean, France and Germany, I'm not sure that the mental, or Italy, France, Germany, Italy, I don't think the mental health expression is the same. It might be closer to each other, but I don't think it's the same. And I think it might differ a lot between North Italy, between South Italy and Sweden than between Italy and Lebanon. So again, I'm not very versed in the impacts and the history of colonialism. So I'm not going to venture into something that is not that is out of my depths. But what I will say is that specifically in the worlds we live in today, I think societies are more and more hybrids, and individuals are more and more hybrids. So do I identify more as Arab, or more as European, or more as Christian or Muslim, or, I mean, you speak to people
Brazilian.
Or Brazil, I would love to, or Brazilian. I don't think that there's this also, because there's the colonialism hegemony, but there's also the cultural hegemony, where everything is cultural and nothing is universal. I think, as in everything else, it's the midway where you find really the practical and good solutions for people. It's not pushing one ideology. I don't think ideology serves reality.
So we're 1 hour and a half. Let me see if there are the last questions. Oh my God, there are many people saying many things. So many people agree, like Leandra Brazil saying that I believe that suffer doesn't have to be seen as a disease, to be taken care of. It's very great, this dialogue. So then Nayada is saying in English, so I'm going to say in Portuguese first. So Nayada says, obrigada pelo seu intelecto claro e acolhedor, caloroso, sensível, compartilhado com a gente essa experiência. A pergunta é: como lidar com essa crise global de humanidade, uma doença social? Well, I'm gonna add, I would like to add with this question, hate. No, we are in the moment of hate. So, yeah.
Well, you know, I think maybe I'll just I'll share a few thoughts, and then I'll share with you a video that that gives me hope, because I think with all what we're going through and on the globe, we need hope. So I think basically as humans, deep down, we're moved either by love or by fear. I mean, at least this is how I try to understand my actions and reactions. Am I doing this through love or because of fear of not being respected, fear of not being enough, fear of not being loved, or etc., etc. And I think there's a lot of fear going around, and a lot of globally, a lot of rejection of the other, the alterity. We need to be all the same, and then things will be great, which we know it won't. I think humans need the other, l'autre, like we say in French. And I think we are at a real trouble with that. Compounded on it some existential threats that unfortunately our leaders are not fully aware of. And I'm speaking specifically about climate change. I'm speaking about also the deadly nuclear capacity that is currently present on the globe, and another development that might be good or might be bad. Some sci-fi people think that, I mean, maybe humans won't exist with the artificial intelligence that's coming. So there are real threats to our existence in general. But I think the main problem is that, or the main difficulty is that we're not able to, what got us here so far as Homo sapiens is our capacity to collaborate. And I don't think we're being able really to collaborate together without fear and to look beyond our own individual interest to the interest of humanity. And I don't know how do we manage, but in most parts of the world, there's a disconnect between the people and the leaders of the people, and I think that's a big issue as well. And I think more and more we see leaders that are not.
Rabih, I have to interrupt you because you're Rabih?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, because your video, when you said in the most part of the world, so then your video was like, ooh.
Yeah, so in the most part of the world, there's a disconnect between the people and the leaders of the people. And I think also this creates layers of complexity. So I think what really helps is each one of us really finding what they're good at and working on it. And here I would like to share with you this video that I love a lot and that gives me hope. And I found it with Portuguese subtitles. Can you see now?
No. Gabi, você pode pôr aí?
No?
Vou ver. So, um moment. Yes.
Yes?
Dirt. Yeah.
Dirt.
Good.
Yeah.
We are constantly being bombarded by problems that we face, and sometimes we can get completely overwhelmed. The story of the hummingbird is about this huge forest being consumed by a fire. All the animals in the forest come out and they are transfixed as they watch the forest burning, and they feel very overwhelmed, very powerless, except this little hummingbird. It says, I'm going to do something about the fire. So it flies to the nearest stream, takes a drop of water, and puts it on the fire, and goes up and down, up and down, up and down, as fast as it can. In the meantime, all the other animals, much bigger animals, like the elephant with a big trunk, could bring much more water. They are standing there helpless, and they are saying to the hummingbird, what do you think you can do? You're too little. This fire is too big. Your wings are too little. And you're big, so small. You can only bring a small drop of water at a time. But as they continue to discourage it, it turns to them without wasting any time and tells them, I'm doing the best I can. And that, to me, is what all of us should do. We should always feel like a hummingbird. I may feel insignificant, but I certainly don't want to be like the animals watching as the planet goes down the drain. I will be a hummingbird. I will do the best I can.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
I hope that this will inspire you and will help you as it helped me.
Wow, what a beautiful thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Marco is saying like, wow, beautiful. Yeah, well, I invite only beautiful things and beautiful people to this laboratory because I don't have time to lose people. Because if I die, I died happy. Então, assim, a gente aqui nesse laboratório, a gente só traz gente linda, maravilhosa, que vale a pena viver, porque eu sempre fico achando que pode ser meu último dia de vida, o nosso último dia de vida, e a gente morreria feliz com a presença de Rabih. So, you wanna say something else? Or we can say goodbye?
I just want to say thank you for everyone for staying, for participating, and hopefully one day I'll come visit you in Brazil. I love Brazil. I've never been to Brazil, so hopefully one day I'll come visit also and see you there.
So, o Rabih está falando que agradece a participação de todo mundo e que ele nunca foi para o Brasil e que ele um dia pretende ir e que gosta muito do Brasil. Eu aproveito para dizer que ele gosta muito do Brasil porque não está no Brasil, né? Estou brincando. A gente adora esse país, né? Que nesse momento está vivendo uma situação muito, muito, infelizmente, real, mais real do que surreal. E sim, o Brasil é um lugar maravilhoso, incrível. E Rabih, you are welcome to come to Brazil anytime. You have a couch to stay. And we are very, very glad that you're here in our laboratory. You are amazing. We are very honored to have you here. I know that you work with a team, so we have to also thank your team and you to be plenty of hope. And yes, so thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hello. Bye, everyone. Bye, bye. Tchau, todo mundo. Tchau, gente. Obrigada por participar.